I'm sorry, Ellen. I've just been informed that the lab that manufactured your drugs has decided to discontinue production.
Don't waste your breath, Doctor. We both know that without this treatment, I won't last long. But I want to have a normal life until the very end.
Ellen, remember the shipwreck that killed Professor Banbury and sank 15 paintings from his collection? The ones he was supposed to hand down to us?
Of course.
Well, apparently, one of the paintings resurfaced in Budapest in an auction catalog. I want you to go there to check its authenticity.
That's how I ended up going to Hungary. I thought that I could escape death by leaving New York, but I actually ended up going to meet it.
A few months ago, the Yukos saved my life. They found me when I was dying next to a river in the west of Siberia and took me in.
Tuk-tuk!
They are accompanying the migration of the snow ostriches to their sacred lands.
It's a long journey. A very special journey.
Today, I'm just trying to help them.
Kate Walker will always represent a problem for us.
I will do what it takes, Colonel.
Migration must continue.
No time to lose.
Protect the Yukos from those criminals.
You can count on me.
The soldiers. We have to go. Kate Walker! No!
Leave me alone.
Do calm down, Miss Walker.
It's for your own good, whether you like it or not.
You can't go to there anymore.
The Yuko caravan absolutely must continue on its migration. Do you understand? Hang on! Oscar!
Come on! Come get some!
No way I'm going back now that I'm so close. horrible blizzard with snow and ice. And then nothing. My memory's all mixed up. Hang on!
Tuk-tuk! Goodbye, Kate Walker.
I'm fine. No time to lose. I don't believe it.
Go quickly! There!
Captain!
You're one of the very last representatives of a world that is fast disappearing, Miss Walker. That no one will miss.
There's no way I'm going back.
Welcome to Hulra. Let me reassure you, everything will be fine.
All my life, people have called me Franklin Fargo. Now this name sounds like an old souvenir. Since the accident,
you will receive instructions as we go along.
I've been held in a strange place. My only company is an unknown voice that challenges me. For that voice, I am only Subject 13.
Prince of Persia games from the last generation are highly regarded for good reason. They look great, they had incredibly addictive and engaging platforming, and the way they let you manipulate time was a hook that caught our attention in a big way. If somehow you never played them, the time is now. For less than the price of a regular game, you can get the HD remakes of all three PS2 era Prince of Persia games in the Prince of Persia Trilogy HD.
Babylon.
As soon as you boot up the game, you have to make a choice. Are you going to play The Sands of Time, Warrior Within, or Two Thrones? All three of the titular Prince's adventures are here, but you only get one shot to pick before you have to quit out of the game completely to choose again. Annoying? Sure, but not the end of the world since you're still getting 3 games. If you're unfamiliar with the Prince series, let me bring you up to speed. These are action platformers starring, well, the Prince of Persia, a dashing, ridiculously agile hero. Through the 3 games, you'll use his ninja skills to overcome a series of environmental puzzles, as well as defeat whatever horrific enemies he faces. The menus, music, and sound are all straight remakes of the original. The big difference, though, is the high-res textures and that all the games are running in widescreen. While only so much can be done with the engine to bring it up to speed, graphically it still has moments where it impresses. If nothing else, it certainly doesn't look bad on an HD screen. And if you're lucky enough to have a 3D TV, you'll be stoked to know that all 3 games support 3D. Scene to scene, all 3 Prince of Persia games are here in their entirety. This means you'll get the frustrating moments, where the prince seems to jump inexplicably where you didn't mean for him to go. But it also means you'll get all the moments that make you feel like a badass. Platforming your way through the environment in ways that few games today can even hold a candle to. The environmental puzzles and combat also hold up well. Despite having completed them years ago, the clever puzzles are satisfying to solve. Combat, too, is fun, with the prince's agility empowering him to take on several enemies at once. The time mechanics of each game are still a blast to play around with. Having a chance to take back a horrible mistake gives the Prince of Persia games fantastic pacing. You never feel cheated by death, but instead look at it as an opportunity to learn. If, like me, you remember not all the Prince of Persia games being as fun as one another, don't expect the collection to change that. The original story is fantastic, but the latter ones, not so much. Still, the platforming in them is great and definitely worth checking out. Ultimately, what makes the Prince of Persia trilogy great is its value. For so little, you get some of the best games of the last generation. Granted, not all the Prince of Persia games are created equal.
Ubisoft is relaunching its Prince of Persia franchise with the new Prince of Persia for Xbox 360, PS3, and PC. This is a brand new Prince with a brand new storyline, and the sands of time that we've come to know and love are actually gone away. So for those who are expecting the same old Prince of Persia that you've known and loved, you're in for a bit of a surprise. Ubisoft has completely redone the style and feel of the series, and we're not just talking about the cheesy angst of Warrior Within. Instead, we get a beautiful, artistic world running off a modified version of the Assassin's Creed engine. Oh, emo Prince, how little you are missed.
Hey, I'm a legend. I'll live forever anyway. Wow, that sounded better in my head than out loud.
The characters in this Prince of Persia are completely different from the Sands of Time trilogy. You start off as a punk thief lost in a sandstorm who gets transported into a mystical world. Pretty quickly you run into Elika, a descendant of a mystical people who are charged with protecting the Tree of Life, prisoned to the evil Ahriman. Faster than you can say Akami, Ahriman is freed and the world is overtaken by corruption. The prince and Elika must fight to heal the lands and restore them to their former beauty. As familiar as this story may be, it's actually pretty good. Elika is going to be the character that people care about. She saves you when you're about to die, never acts out of turn, and accepts your boorish behavior. She's the perfect girlfriend. Most of the emotional weight comes from Elika, and she's a likable secondary character in the vein of Alex from the Half-Life series. The new prince follows tradition and is a smug jerk. We're not sure why the prince has to be a jerk all the time, but at least he follows in that jerk tradition.
Oh, you're heavier than you look.
Playing Prince of Persia is like running through a watercolor painting. It's absolutely gorgeous, and there's something magical about the art style. Now there are 4 main worlds, and each has its own feel. Everything from a city of pillars to crumbled stone and lava. If you get high enough, you can even see the parts of the land that you've saved from corruption, and the areas that you haven't healed yet. Now, this game runs beautifully. Sure, there is occasional slowdown, but there's minimal loading and texture pop-in, and just the art style itself is so vibrant and beautiful, it's unlike anything I've ever seen in a video game. The gameplay may turn some people off, though. The prince that you control at the start of the game is the same prince that you control at the end of the game. He doesn't learn new moves or upgrade his weapons at all, he's always going to use the same sword. The controls are really simple. There's a button for acrobatics, a sword button, a button to control your gauntlet to grab onto walls or to launch enemies into the air, and a button to use Elika. Combat is always 1-on-1 or 1-on-2 if you're counting in Elika, and it's a lot slower paced than many people are going to be used to. So if you want to try to button mash, you're really not going to get a lot out of the combat. This is not a bad thing, it's just different. Instead of the frantic button presses we're used to from a Prince of Persia game, the focus here is rhythmically chaining combos together. For example, you may hit a guy with a sword a few times, use the gauntlet to launch him up in the air, then have Elika throw you at your own enemy. There are also QuickTime events in the middle of battles to do special evades which allow for some great cinematic moments. But they do get old after a while because you're going to keep seeing the same ones again and again. Although the prince doesn't gain any powers, Elika does, and that's how you progress through the game. After healing an area, you'll collect light seeds to gain magic which activates special power plates. You'll fling from plate to plate with the rebound magic or run up walls with the dash power. Now each of the different stages will have specific magic plates in them, so the order that you choose to unlock the powers is also going to be the order in which you're going to be able to play through the different worlds. Each boss has a specific corruption trap that's also released into the world, and the order you tackle the various stages will determine which traps are released and when, meaning you could drastically change which traps you'll face throughout the game. If Prince of Persia has one major issue, it's that there's just not a lot of challenge. You can't die because Elika will always save you, and the minor puzzle elements just aren't hard at all to figure out. I'm all for creating an experience that even casual gamers can enjoy, but there's no option to escalate the difficulty for those who don't want their hands to be held. Not sure if you'll make a double jump? Don't worry, the color drains from the screen when you need to use Elika for a double jump. Can't tell when an enemy is about to counterattack? No sweat. A button prompt will appear to warn you. Again, there's nothing wrong with making things easier for the masses, but there's no reason to exclude a tougher challenge for those who want it. This concern aside, Prince of Persia really is more about the experience. I'd have a much bigger problem with the lack of difficulty if it wasn't for the fact that the game is really still rewarding and enjoyable despite this issue. This is the type of game you want to sit back and enjoy. Just accept the ease of play and enjoy the visuals and crazy gymnastics. And for hardcore completists, it is difficult to find all 1001 light seeds, and you will have to do some clever thinking to get to them. and that will extend the normal 8-hour game quite a bit. Prince of Persia is not a game that everyone will like because it's very different from the norm. However, if you can get past the changes to the formula, you'll find a very beautiful and striking experience. Sometimes being different pays off, and you should definitely check this prince out, even if he is a jerk.
This place is very familiar.
Who are you? What have you done?
You ask as if I were a ruffian, a wanderer with no place in this palace. Know that I am a son to King Shahraman, and brother of Prince Malik, who rules here in our father's name. I did not come here seeking a mythical army. I was sent to study alongside my brother, that someday I might be as great a leader as he is. This territory was once the heart of King Solomon's mighty empire. According to legend, it holds a secret we are sworn to protect. Perhaps that secret is the reason the fortress is much sought after by neighboring kingdoms. Malik was sent here so the army would have a strong commander, to discourage attacks. But even Malik's famed strength could not discourage everyone. This is not the glad welcome I was expecting. I have to find Malik. He'll be planning a way out of this. I'm starting to feel that the odds in this battle are not in our favor. This reminds me of Azad.
Prince of Persia: The Forgotten Sands is the latest entry in the franchise and is, contrary to popular belief, not a movie tie-in. It actually goes back to the original prince from Sands of Time and takes place between Sands and the warrior within. In Forgotten Sands, you play as the titular Prince of Persia, a handsome, acrobatic warrior with a penchant for climbing just about anything and destroying anyone he comes to blows with. The prince goes to visit his brother, and in typical video game fashion, things go awry, and he's quickly dragged into an epic quest that will take him through the ruins of a kingdom in an effort to save the world. It's the sort of stuff that previous Prince of Persia games were all about, but I have to say that the storyline pales in comparison to Sands of Time, and never managed to pull me into the narrative. The plot is predictable, and the characters are forgettable, a shame given past Prince of Persia games.
You must be the one to take his place.
I do not want his power, or his kingdom.
Unfortunately, the game's visuals are all over the place. At times, the game looks pretty fantastic, with great dynamic lighting and a wide array of colors, and at other times, the game looks dull and dated. It's impressive to see a large group of enemies on screen repeatedly throughout the game, but it was less impressive when you realize they're largely just the same cloned unit over and over. The game's built on the Assassin's Creed engine, so it's a shame it couldn't look more on par with Ubisoft's other big acrobatic franchise. Still, even while the visuals may not always be the best, the voice acting is as good as ever, and the original Prince actor returns for Forgotten Sands to lend his wit and charm to the game's flagging story.
I'll keep that in mind.
While some of the presentation stuff is weak, the acrobatic platforming the franchise is known for managed to get me hooked all over again. The first couple of hours of platforming would have you thinking it's relatively easy, but it gets more difficult as the prince unlocks new powers. During the quest, the prince will eventually gain the ability to temporarily freeze water into climbable objects and make certain portions of ruins reappear as they were before they were destroyed. The game gradually ramps up the difficulty, forcing the player to combine these powers until eventually they're encountering rooms where all of them are used in epic sequences that make the game feel like a mix of platformer and rhythm action. Combining so many skills is hard, and resulted in a lot of dead princes. Thankfully, Forgotten Sands brings back the ability to rewind time, which gave me a second, and sometimes a fifth or sixth, chance of success. But this isn't the infinite retries of the last Prince of Persia game either, as this time around, players have a limited amount of retries, making failure in Forgotten Sands the perfect balance of risk and reward. There's nothing sweeter than completing a challenge without having to use any retries, or, even better, succeeding when you're on your last try. The platforming is immediately gratifying, but the combat takes some time to be a worthwhile part of the game. The earliest enemies are really boring to fight, and combating them amounts to little more than button mashing. Later though, when I had a series of power and a good mix of enemies to fight, combat became an entirely different beast. Through the course of the game, the prince will get such powers as temporary invincibility, an area effect knockdown, or even the ability to leave a trail of fire in his wake. These are really fun to mix in with the normal attacks, so much so that they make the normal combat interesting enough to actually make me want to play the game's challenge modes, wherein you fight waves of enemies in a set amount of time. Whereas the combat and acrobatic sequences of Forgotten Sands are, in many ways, like those in the fantastic Sands of Time, the story and visuals of the game are a far cry. It's too bad, really, because if the story and look at the game could have been as refined as it felt in Sands of Time, 2010's Prince of Persia could have been the game that people remembered as fondly as its predecessor.